Melbourne, Australia, December 1977. The summer air hung still over Collingwood, a neighbourhood where everyone knew each other's names, where kids played on the streets until dusk, and where people left their doors unlocked. But that December, in a small red brick house on Easy Street, something unimaginable happened. Two young women, full of life and dreams, would become the victims of one of Australia's most brutal and haunting murders. Their names were Suzanne Armstrong and Susan Bartlett, best friends, teachers, roommates. To the outside world, they were just ordinary women living simple lives. But on one quiet night, that simplicity shattered forever. A killer entered their home, and what he left behind would scar the entire nation. The police would later call it one of the most vicious crimes in Melbourne's history. No one saw it happen. No one heard a scream. Yet by morning, 2 lives were gone, and a 3-year-old boy, Suzanne's son, was found crying alone in the house, untouched but traumatized, surrounded by horror. This is the story of the Easy Street murders, a story of mystery, fear, and the cruel silence of a crime that still has no name behind it.
It began with worry. Suzanne hadn't shown up to work for 2 days. Her friends tried calling, but the line rang endlessly. On the 3rd day, one of her close friends decided to visit the house. The door was unlocked, strange for Suzanne, who was always careful.
Inside, the air was thick with a smell no one could mistake. As she stepped further in, she found Suzanne's young son crying softly in his cot. And then she saw them. Suzanne and Susan, lifeless, their bodies brutally stabbed. The scene was a nightmare. The walls were splattered, the floor soaked, the quiet house suddenly loud with the echoes of violence. The police arrived within minutes, but nothing could prepare them for what they saw. Both women had been attacked with extreme ferocity, as if the killer was driven by rage. There was no sign of forced entry, which meant the women might have known their murderer. That one discovery would change everything. Within hours, the small street filled with flashing police lights, shocked neighbors, and trembling whispers. The double murder sent waves of fear across Melbourne. Everyone asked the same question: who could do something so monstrous? But no one had an answer. The Easy Street house was sealed off as investigators searched for clues. Every inch was examined: the kitchen, the hallway, the bedrooms. Detectives found blood patterns that suggested the attack began in the living room and ended in Suzanne's bedroom. The violence was personal, too personal. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't random. It was something darker. Outside, the street was crowded with reporters and curious neighbors. For many, it didn't feel real. Suzanne and Susan were gentle, kind women who had no enemies. They worked at local schools, loved teaching, and spent evenings drinking tea on the porch. The idea that anyone could hurt them felt impossible. But the silence of the house was heavy with secrets. The killer had left almost nothing behind. No fingerprints, no clear footprints, no weapon. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving only horror in his wake. For detectives, it was a race against time. The longer the trail grew cold, the harder it would be to catch whoever had done this. 3-year-old Gregory Armstrong was the only living witness in that house. When police found him, he was dehydrated, scared, and confused, but alive. He had spent nearly 2 days in the house alone with his mother's body nearby. His small voice, calling out, "Mummy," haunted even the most seasoned detectives. Officers carried him out of the house, wrapped in a blanket, as cameras flashed. The image of that child became a symbol, not just of survival, but of unbearable loss. He was too young to tell them anything useful, too innocent to understand what had happened. But his presence was proof that whoever killed his mother had chosen not to harm him. That one detail struck everyone. Was it mercy, or something else? A killer who couldn't bring himself to hurt a child, even after committing unspeakable violence. The contrast was chilling, and it deepened the mystery further. The investigation began with hope. Detectives interviewed over 100 people, neighbors, co-workers, friends, even ex-boyfriends. The women were well liked and had no known enemies. Theories began to form. Maybe a jealous lover, maybe a stranger who followed them home. But nothing fit. Days turned into weeks. The police created crime scene sketches, reconstructed timelines, and combed through every inch of the area. But the killer had left no trail. Newspapers began calling it the Easy Street Enigma. Some believed it was a serial killer. Others thought it was a crime of passion. The only certainty was that whoever did it knew what they were doing. As time passed, fear began to replace curiosity. Women in Melbourne started locking their doors at all times. Nightly news warned people to stay alert. The community that once trusted everyone now looked at each other with suspicion. The killer could be anyone. A friend, a neighbor, even someone who walked past you on your way to work. Rumors spread faster than facts. A man living nearby became an early suspect, but there was no evidence linking him to the murders. Later, theories emerged that the notorious serial killer Peter Dupas could have been responsible. His pattern of brutal attacks on women matched the easy street killings, but he would have been too young at the time. Another theory pointed toward a local criminal, someone with connections to Suzanne's past. Police looked into it, but again, no proof. Witnesses recalled seeing a strange man near the house days before the murder, but the description was vague and conflicting. Detectives were drowning in leads that went nowhere. For every answer, 10 more questions appeared. The frustration grew, and so did the fear that this case might never be solved. The murders sent shockwaves through Melbourne. Newspapers screamed headlines like "Double Murder Terrorizes City." Women refused to walk alone at night. For the first time, people began installing locks, security lights, and dogs for protection. Collingwood, once a calm suburb, became a neighborhood of whispers. Police increased patrols, promising justice, but the killer seemed to have vanished. Every strange sound, every unfamiliar face brought panic. Mothers warned their daughters not to trust anyone. Even years later, people who lived on Easy Street said they could still feel it. That eerie presence that something truly evil had once walked there. The case became more than a crime. It became a legend, a ghost story whispered across generations. Parents would tell their children to stay home after dark, or the Easy Street killer will get you. A few brave witnesses stepped forward. One neighbor claimed she heard screams that night but thought it was just people arguing. Another said he saw a man walking quickly away from the house. But neither could give details strong enough for a conviction. Over the years, journalists dug into the case again and again. New witnesses appeared, offering pieces of the puzzle, a new sighting, a forgotten memory, a possible confession. But each time, it led to the same dead end. The silence of the neighborhood became part of the mystery. People didn't want to remember. Some said they were too scared to talk. Others simply didn't want to relive the horror. Whatever the reason, the truth stayed buried. By the 1980s, the Easy Street investigation had gone cold. The original detectives retired, new ones took over, and boxes of evidence gathered dust. Still, something about the case haunted everyone who worked on it. Some officers admitted they'd wake up at night thinking about those women, wondering what they missed. Decades later, in the 2000s, DNA technology gave the case new hope. Samples were retested, and police announced they were reviewing the murders with modern tools. The city held its breath, but no breakthrough came. The killer had either vanished forever or died taking his secret to the grave. For Suzanne and Susan's families, that silence was the cruelest punishment. Justice was promised, but never delivered. Even today, people visit Easy Street to see the house. Some bring flowers, some whisper prayers, some just stand there, trying to understand how two lives could end so violently and so quietly. The house looks ordinary now, painted, repaired, and lived in. But those who know the story say the energy there feels heavy, like time itself refuses to move on. Every few years, the media revisits the case. Documentaries, podcasts, and cold case units reopen the story, hoping to find what others missed. But the ending is always the same: mystery, frustration, and silence. It's as if the truth itself is trapped in that night, locked behind the walls of that little house on Easy Street, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it. The murders of Suzanne Armstrong and Susan Bartlett became one of Australia's most haunting, unsolved crimes. The case changed how people saw safety, trust, and even friendship. It proved that evil could exist anywhere, even behind the warmest smiles and quietest streets. To this day, their families still wait for closure. Their photographs, once filled with laughter, are now symbols of loss. Some believe the killer may have confessed before dying. Others say the truth is still out there, buried under decades of silence. But one thing is certain: the shadows of Easy Street will never fade. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light feels like the house itself remembers. 40 years have passed, but the mystery still breathes. Who killed Suzanne and Susan? Why did he spare the child? And how did he disappear without a trace? Maybe the killer is gone. Or maybe he's still out there, watching, listening, smiling at the fact that he was never caught. The Easy Street murders remind us that sometimes monsters don't hide under the bed, they live next door. If you believe every mystery deserves an ending, subscribe to uncover more true stories that the world tried to forget. And tell me in the comments, what do you think happened on Easy Street? Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and never stop searching for the truth.